Seriously? Hey guys, and welcome to this very special tactics video with me, 6+ Stevo. The reason I say it's special because today we are covering the Tankbustas, one of my favourite units in the Codex, and in my humble opinion, one of the strongest, if not the strongest unit in our Codex. And yeah, so let's take a look at them. The awesome Tankbustas. So they are a power level of 4. They cost 5 points each, and then a further 12 points for the rocket launchers. So 17 points for each Tankbuster. Let's go over their stats. They're basically boys' stats. Movement 5, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 5+, strength 4, toughness 4, 1 wound, 2 attacks, leadership 6, and a 6+ save. You can upgrade one to a boss knob. That gets you the extra attack, the extra leadership, the extra strength, 2 wounds, and it doesn't cost you any extra points, so you should always have a boss knob. And then you can also have the bomb squigs, which also have a 5-inch move, a 2+ weapon skill, a 2+ ballistic skill, strength 3, toughness 4, 1 wound, attack 1, leadership 4, and a 6+ save. So this unit contains 5 Tankbusters. It can include up to 5 additional Tankbusters or up to 10 additional Tankbusters, so up to 15 in a squad. A boss knob can take the place of 1 Tankbuster, and then for every 5 Tankbusters or boss knob, it can be accompanied by up to 2 bomb squigs. Each Tankbuster and boss knob is armed with a rocket launcher, stick bombs, and Tankbuster bombs. Each bomb squig carries a squig bomb. So yeah, we can have a maximum squad size of 21, because if we have the 15 Tankbusters, that will then gain us access to 6 bomb squigs. So we can make a very large squad of these. We'll go over the stats of the weapons. So first off, the rocket launcher that they are all armed with as standard has a range of 24 inches, assault 1, strength 8, AP -2, and damage is a flat 3. I love the rocket launcher. It is an awesome weapon. It's one of our best anti-armor ranged weapons in the game that we have quite a lot of access to. It really is just a very good, reliable weapon. Now it's only assault 1, so you just get the 1 shot. When in the hands of most of the orcs, that's not great, and it's going to miss more often than it hits. But as we shall see, the Tankbusters have some very special rules to get around this. It's really, the thing that makes this great is the really reliable flat 3 damage. You get a few of these hitting, the wounds really start piling up, and yeah, it's just a really good, reliable weapon. You can change, how many is it again? Alright, it's down there. So for every 5 Tankbusters, 1 Tankbuster may replace their rocket launcher with a tank hammer, and for every 5, 1 may replace their rocket launcher with a pair of rocket pistols. So let's take a look at those options now. So 1 in 5 of your boys can have these weapons, and I suppose you could do if it's 1 in 5, so a 1 in 5, if you've got a squad of 5, you could have 1 with rocket pistols and 1 with a tank hammer, so you can get both of these into a squad of 5. So let's go over the rocket pistols first. Rocket pistols are the same cost as the rocket launcher, 12 points. They are, though, half the range at 12 inches, and they are a type pistol 2, so 2 shots with these as opposed to 1. However, you do get a -1 to the strength, so strength 7. That can make a lot of difference. If most vehicles that you're going to be targeting with these are either going to be toughness 7 or toughness 8. So being at a strength 7 really does put these weapons at a big disadvantage versus the rocket launcher. So if you're shooting at toughness 7, you're going to be wounded on 4+ rather than a 3+. And then at toughness 8, obviously, they're really not going to be that great, because you're going to be wounded on 5s. And for your anti-tank weaponry, you really want to be wounding on at least a 4+. You get the same AP, but the damage also is a D3 as opposed to a flat 3, so it's not reliable damage. So although you get more shots, they are weaker, and they're potentially going to do less damage. The advantage of them though is that you can shoot them in combat. Now you might think this is a unit you don't want in combat, but as we'll get into later, these guys are actually, yeah, they're not bad in combat. So the fact that in the shooting phase, if you are in combat, you can still shoot your pistols is good. However, they're not assault weapons, and assault weapons in the hands of orcs are great because we have many special rules. And the assault weapon itself, you can advance and still shoot it, albeit with a -1 modifier, but it's still nice to be able to still shoot it. Assault weapons are great for orcs. Pistols, you know, they have their uses, as explained, but I'll be honest, I don't really see the rocket pistols as a viable option. If they were cheaper, maybe, but the fact that they're the same points, the rocket launcher is just a much better, more reliable, more useful weapon, I believe. And then we've got the tank hammer, and this is where we get into the sort of close combat sort of side of this unit. So obviously its range is a melee weapon, its type is a melee weapon. Strength, AP and damage all dash. So this thing comes with some very special rules. Each time the bearer fights, it can only make a single attack with this weapon. If the attack hits, the target suffers D3 mortal wounds and the bearer is slain. So it's a suicidal, it's basically just a rocket on a stick that the orc swings into the side of a vehicle and sacrifices himself, whether intentionally or just because he hasn't thought about the ramifications of his actions. Could easily be either of those. But yeah, it's a great way to dish out some mortal wounds. We don't have access to a huge amount of mortal wounds in the army compared to other factions. So anything that dishes out mortal wounds, especially against sort of high armor saved, you know, units, things with invulnerable saves and stuff, this is good. This is very good. And it is a bit cheaper. It's 10 points as opposed to 12, so you save 2 points, but obviously that's going to be one boy that's not shooting rockets during the shooting phase, which really is where this unit's real strength lies. Then they also come armed with the stick bombs, 6-inch grenade, D6, strength 3, AP nothing, damage 1. I never use them, but they also have the amazing Tankbuster bombs. So again, it's a range 6-inch grenade weapon, D3 shots, but strength 8, AP -2, and D6 damage. So unlike the rocket launcher, it is random damage, but it has the potential to do D6 damage with each shot. And don't forget, you are getting potentially 3 shots out of these grenades. So if you get into within that 6-inch range during the shooting phase and you opt to lob one of these in, it's potentially going to do a lot of damage. Yeah, it has the potential to do 18 damage if you get 3 shots and they all hit and wound, and then you do the D6 damage, then you are really laughing. So yeah, and then they also come with the abilities. Here we go, mob rule, Daka. So Daka is obviously great for these guys. You get them exploding 6s, and the fact that they always hit on a 6 regardless of modifier, so it's fantastic when they're shooting at flyers and anything with that -1 to hit, or if they've advanced, you know, those 6s are always going to hit, and then they're going to generate extra shots, so you have the potential to land a lot of hits and do a lot of damage in the shooting phase with this unit. We know the here we go rule, we know the mob rule. Now their interesting special rules, and their amazing special rules, is tank hunters. You can re-roll hit rolls for attacks made by this unit that target vehicle units. That cannot be underestimated, how reliable that makes this unit at doing what they're set out to do. So it's obviously, as the name suggests, these are your tank hunters. They're going to be out there looking for vehicles, tanks, dreadnoughts, knights, anything like that, and getting those re-rolls for any misses is fantastic, especially when it's combined with the Daka rule, because those extra shots you get also benefit from those re-rolls to hit. So yeah, against vehicles, very, very useful. Against non-vehicle units, not so much, because obviously you're only getting the reroll against vehicles. So against non-vehicle units, they're going to miss with most of the shots, because you don't get to do any rerolls. And with just one shot each, yeah, they're not going to be amazing, but you only need a few of these to hit. And let's not forget that these come in at 2 points cheaper than a boy with a rocket launcher. So you're not really losing anything if you are using these guys and shooting at vehicles. It's not like you've paid the extra points for this tank hunter ability. In fact, if you look at it that way, you're actually saving points. This is one of the reasons why it's just not worth at all including rocket launchers in your boys mobs, because you can do the same with these guys. These are effectively boys. You can give them the rocket launcher and they're a lot cheaper, and they come with the extra special rules. Then we've got the bomb squig option. Bomb squigs are great. They come in at 10 points each, and I think in most cases they are pretty much an auto include. Bomb squigs, first of all, the death of a bomb squig is ignored for the purposes of morale tests. So why are bomb squigs so good? Well, they have a 2+ ballistic skill, and their squig bombs, oh, they are good. They have a range of 18 inches, so a little bit shorter than the rocket launcher. It's assault 1, so this works like a shooting attack. Strength 8, AP -2, and D6 damage. It does have the slight sort of downside that it cannot target units that can fly. And obviously, if it does land and hit with this weapon, the squig is removed. It's a 1 use only. He blows himself up. But yeah, so it's ballistic skill 2+, so he's likely to hit, and he still benefits from those rerolls. So that's a 2+ rerollable. So these things are incredibly reliable. Unless you're really unlucky with the dice, these are hitting. And when they hit, they have the potential to cause double the damage of the rocket launchers. So yeah, squig bombs running into tanks is very scary for your opponent. They're not going to like you when you do that. And like I say, for the points, yeah, they are 1 use only, but it's that potential D6 damage. Also, the squig bombs have another use. Like it says, they're ignored for the purposes of morale and stuff, so they are great to just be there to soak up wounds and help protect your Tankbustas a bit, and keep those guys alive for as long as possible. So it's an extra couple of wounds in the unit, which is also quite useful in itself. And they can fight in close combat. If they do get caught out, they can fight in close combat. They're only strength 3, they only get 1 attack, but they do hit on a 2+ in close combat as well. But that's obviously not where you want them to be. If you're in combat with your squig bombs, something's gone wrong along the way and you've made mistakes. But yeah, in combat, how are these units? Well, mistakenly, people think that these aren't going to be good in combat, but in the right circumstances, they definitely can be. Like I said, they are effectively orc boys, so they still get 2 attacks each. Their strength and toughness 4. They've got a weapon skill of 3+, so they definitely are no slouches in combat. Obviously, it is shooting and stuff where their primary purposes and their primary strengths are, but that tank hunter's rule, the reroll hit rolls for attacks made by this unit that target vehicles, that isn't just for shooting, that is for combat as well. So now in close combat, these guys are hitting on a 3+ with rerolls. That's really good. Now, obviously in close combat, they're only strength 4, they're not going to be doing a lot of damage to vehicles, but let's say this unit has shot at a vehicle. They're the only unit in range to shoot at it, and they're within that charge range, that vehicle's still alive. Why not charge these guys in? If it's just got a few wounds left, these guys are perfect to shave those last couple of wounds off. Yet they are low strength, but they're going to be getting a lot of hits in. Now, a unit of 10 of these, for example, you're getting 20 attacks, hitting on 3s with rerolls. The vast majority of those are going to hit. And then you are going to roll some of those 5s or 6s, whatever required, and potentially just shave those last couple of wounds off that tank and destroy it once and for all. And let's not forget the tank hammers. The tank hammers in combat are going to be absolutely devastating. Throwing out some mortal wounds, especially if you just want to finish that vehicle off, hitting on a 3 with a reroll and then causing D3 mortal wounds, it's going to be pretty nice indeed. One thing that must be said about this unit though, as much as I'm praising it, as much as I'm saying it is, you know, it is the squigs nuts, this is a top unit. However, it does have some downsides. The big glaring downside of this unit is it's the epitome of a glass hammer. It hits hard, it devastates whatever it touches. It really is that good when used correctly. But once your opponent sets his targets on this unit, it's not going to survive. They're just boys. They've got that 6+ t-shirt save. They've got low leadership. Quite often they're going to be out there on their own targeting tanks and stuff, so they're not going to benefit from buffs dependent how you use them. And so yeah, they can be deleted and wiped off the board quick. However, having said that, if these guys go out there, turn 1, they take out a land raider or a knight, they've earned many times over their points back. So they may only survive for 1 turn, but in that 1 turn they are going to cause devastation. You know, they really are that powerful. So sometimes having these sort of kind of fragile units like this, it doesn't really matter. You just treat them like a suicide unit. There are ways to keep them alive and make them more survivable, which we'll go into in a minute. But yeah, these are a top unit. And look, if they die having destroyed a big land raider or a knight or something, then these boys have died happy. This is what they live for. They live for blowing up big things. And yeah, any Tankbuster boy, if his last thing he sees before he dies is a tank erupting into flames from the rocket that he fired at it, then he's going to die a happy orc boy. So how do I use these guys? Well, I've tried out a few various ways of using them, and some things have changed along the way. So the way I used to use them was in transports, and this is still very much a viable option. You keep these boys in a truck or in a battle wagon or a squigoth or any of the other transports available in the game. Then that's obviously going to make them more survivable. They're protected from the vehicle. If you make sure the vehicle you put them in is open topped, they can still shoot from it, so they can still kick out all their damage potential. And they've got an even bigger threat range because of the added mobility of the vehicle itself. The fact that your opponent has to destroy this vehicle before he gets to the juicy innards inside can be very frustrating for them, and it does make these boys a lot more survivable and a lot more manoeuvrable. So you remember, you've only got that 24-inch range on that rocket launcher, so being able to move around and get them where you want them quickly is key. And that survivability does somewhat make up for that. You know, the low t-shirt save and the leadership. You could also in the transport add in with them big mech with KFF to give that 5+ invulnerable save to help keep them alive longer. Obviously you could have a pain boy in there as well, dishing out those feel no pains, ignore wounds. So there are ways to help keep them alive, but obviously all of that is a point sink, because now you're not just paying the points for the unit, you've got all these sort of like hidden costs. So if your plan is to try and keep these boys alive with the use of custom force fields, pain boys, transports, etc., then that has to kind of be taken into account for the cost of the unit if you are buying those things and paying the points for those things just to try and keep these guys alive. I've kind of since then gone the other way and tried out some various other ways to use them, not using transports. And let's not forget, one big downside of the transports now since the FAQ is that we cannot use stratagems on units while they're within transports. I really don't like that rule. It's a real shame, and it has forced me to use my Tankbusters in different ways. Because as we'll see as this video goes on, there are some stratagems that make this already really good unit that much better. So for me, transports are out, but they are still definitely a viable option. If you do want to keep these guys alive for multiple turns to be able to do that reliable shooting and cause a lot of damage, then transports are still very much a viable option. You just have to bear in mind that you can't use those stratagems, and you are going to be paying the points premium to have that transport. Now, the way I like to use these guys is with a weird boy casting the jump on them. This is great because basically you can have a turn 1 deep strike out of these guys. I tend to keep them at the back of the board, try and keep them behind terrain, somewhere really well hidden, or at the very least in cover and out of range of the vast majority of my opponent's guns. I keep a weird boy near them, right at the back of the board, tucked away, and then first turn on the psychic phase, weird boy casts a jump, gets these Tankbusters right in my opponent's face, at the target I want to kill, his biggest, nastiest looking tank, and pretty much these guys are guaranteed to take that tank out first turn. Now, like I said before, when it comes to his next turn, he is going to make damn sure these guys are destroyed, and bring them in turn 1. They are going to be there on their own, and they're going to be, unsupported, and your opponent's not going to have too many choices of targets, so these guys are going to get gunned down. So it might actually be worthwhile holding these guys back and trying to synchronize your attacks. If these guys teleport down at the same time as other units and stuff are just getting within charge range and threat range, then it's almost throwing too many targets at your opponent, and he may not shoot at these. However, having seen the devastation these guys wreak, that's really not going to be the case anyway. It's not going to matter most of the time what other targets are within range for him to have a choice of. He's going to want those Tankbusters dead. After you've just killed his beloved Land Raider or his Knight, yeah, you better believe he is going to want these guys dead, and he's going to go for it. And it's not going to be that hard to wipe them out. Because, like I said, these guys are squishy. They are squishy. They are very much a one and done unit. They'll get in, they'll do the job, but then they're going to die afterwards 9 times out of 10. Obviously, dependent on the layout of the map and stuff, if you deep strike them in wisely, you can sort of get them behind terrain and in cover, and there's ways you can help to keep them alive. But yeah, they are a squishy unit, and you have to expect your Tankbusters are going to die through the game. So, speaking of stratagems, let's get off the codex for a moment and take a look at some of the awesome stratagems we can use with Tankbusters. First off, loot it. Now, this is a really cool one for Tankbusters. Use this stratagem when a vehicle unit is destroyed within 3 inches of an Ork infantry unit from your army. Improve the save characteristic of that infantry unit by 1. So, if these guys loot a destroyed vehicle, friend or foe, they get a +1 to their armor save. This is going to be really good for helping to keep these guys alive. And they are Tankbusters. They're tank hunters. That's what they do. They destroy vehicles. So these guys are going to have quite a lot of opportunity to use this stratagem. It's only 1 command point. It's going to make them a lot more survivable. That extra 1 to the save can make a lot of difference. And if you've equipped your Tankbusters to go in with things like tank hammers and stuff, then the potential of them being within that range of a vehicle is going to be quite nice. Destroy it in close combat and then get the +1 armor save ready to weather the storm for his return fire. It's situational, and it's not something I certainly wouldn't bank on this stratagem, or have it sort of in your game plan, but if the situation comes up, why not? Next one is really good, really powerful. The extra stick bomb strategy for 1 command point. Rather than just 1 boy in the mob being able to throw a grenade, up to 10 models in the unit can fire a grenade. And obviously we already know that they carry the Tankbuster bombs. So D3 shots, D6 damage. If you get within that 6-inch range, this is a great stratagem to use because Tankbuster bombs are brutal. You're going to have the potential for a lot more shots and a lot more damage when you land those. And yeah, I don't see any vehicle in the game surviving a barrage of Tankbuster bombs. or very few anyway. Next stratagem we got is more Dakka. So with this stratagem, for 2 command points, your Dakka ability is triggered on 5s or 6s instead of 6s. So this can be used in a multitude of ways, and it buffs the unit so much. So Dakka, we're getting those extra shots on 6s. We're now getting them on all our hits. So every shot that hits, not only hits, but gets us an extra shot. Those extra shots, if against a vehicle, are re-rollable. So with this stratagem, you have the potential to land more hits than you've originally got shots with. You know, it's that powerful. It can just really up the ante with the amount of damage these guys can spit out. Another use of this as well is if your Tankbusters have advanced and they've got that -1 to hit, use this. The -1 to hit is ignored then. They're hitting on 5s and 6s because that's the Dakka ability is it hits on that regardless of modifiers. So you're nullifying that -1, and yeah, hits on 5s and 6s with rerolls, exploding 5s, exploding 6s. There's nothing not to like about this stratagem, and I think Tankbusters are one of the best, if not the best unit to use this stratagem on, because they have probably the highest damage potential of a lot of infantry units in terms of their firearms. So yeah, there's nothing not to like about this. Absolutely brilliant. Another one, the teleporter. So 2 command points, you can teleport a unit with a power rating of 20 or less. So the popular ones at the moment for using this are the Gorkanaut and teleporting in 3 Death Dreads. But we can teleport in things like battle wagons, things like trucks, and have them loaded up with Tankbusters who, whatever is inside the transport, does not contribute to the power level. So your Tankbusters can go in there, no worries. And certainly with a unit like a battle wagon, you could teleport them in, get them right where you want them, right in the enemy's face from turn 2 or turn 3, and they're going to get the benefit of being able to strike in where they're needed. Also, they're going to have the benefit, once they get there, of being within a transport. So they're going to be right in the enemy's face, posing a serious threat, but at the same time, they're going to be very hard to take out because they're going to have to get through the armour and the wounds of that battle wagon or truck or whatever. Certainly with a battle wagon, you could fit in a lot of these guys. You know, you could fit in potentially 20 of them. Having 15 of them with 5 bomb squigs, that's going to be kicking out huge damage potential. But you could also have a big mech in there with the KFF in that transport, teleporting in. They've got a 5+ invulnerable save, the benefit from the armour of the vehicle, the wounds. Now it's going to be really, really hard for your opponent to shift them. But, as said before, the downside of this is that they're not going to benefit from stratagems. However, being able to shoot multiple turns possibly would be better than being able to unleash a whole range of damage with stratagems and then being taken out in 1 turn. So it's something to think about. And at some point that transport is going to be destroyed. They're going to have to get out, and then they're going to be on foot, and then you could use the stratagems on them. So yeah, definitely something to think about there. I wouldn't write off transports, certainly. So yeah, that's some of the stratagems we can use with them, just a small sample. But how about the different clans? How do the different clan cultures and the clan-specific stratagems affect Tankbusters? Well, first we'll look at the Bad Moons. The Bad Moons being my clan, my favourite clan. This is the one I'm experienced with. So in terms of the clan culture buffs, it doesn't actually benefit them in their job because they re-roll 1s in the shooting phase, which is a good buff, don't get me wrong. But with the Tankbusters, that doesn't help them against vehicles because they're re-rolling everything anyway. So they don't get any extra buffs in terms of targeting vehicles. However, they do get that re-roll 1 against non-vehicle units. So now this is making your Tankbusters a bit more useful against a variation of targets. Say you've got them in your army list and then you've come up against an army with no vehicles. These guys are still going to pose a threat, and they're still going to be fairly reliable because they're still benefiting from that Dakka, but they're getting those re-rolls of 1s. So it's going to make them that little bit more accurate, that little bit more reliable. But the best reason to use Bad Moon Tankbusters is because of this stratagem. showing off, which basically means after shooting we can then shoot again with that infantry for 2 command points. So we know the damage potential, we know they can kick out a horrendous amount of damage, so being able to use this stratagem to shoot with them twice in one shooting phase is really, really good. And we can use this multiple times. You know, we can use this every turn and shoot twice every turn. And the way I like to use this best is in combination with the more Daka. So I'll use this one first, getting the Daka improve. So we're hitting on 5s and 6s, we're getting those re-rolls, you know, we're kicking out a lot of shots. And this is in effect for the whole shooting phase. So if we use this showing off one and shoot with them again, this is still in effect. So they're kicking out a potential horrendous amount of damage. So you can quite easily take out 2 big nasty vehicles in one turn with the Tankbustas using these stratagems. It's expensive. It is expensive because it's 2 command points each, so it is pricey, but it is definitely worth it. And trust me when I say it's worth seeing the look on your opponent's face when you do it. Yeah, Bad Moon Tankbustas are savage. And when I did use this was when that unit was had the finger pointed at it, and I was told that it was overpowered and ridiculous. Which, if it wasn't so fragile, that would be there would be a valid point there, because they are that powerful. But it's their squishiness that makes, you know, that stops them being, you know, the ultimate unit. Then we go on to Deathskulls. Deathskulls, obviously, they get that 6+ invulnerable save, so your Tankbusters are going to be that little bit more survivable, which, you know, it's not a huge amount. They're still going to be squishy, they're still going to be pretty easy to take out, but it could make the difference and just help them stay alive that little bit longer. They also get these re-rolls, so obviously against vehicles we already got the re-rolls to hit, so that being able to re-roll that 1 to hit dice is going to be useful against infantry units and stuff, but you know, there's not much use to Tankbusters generally. But they do get to re-roll 1 wound, so a lot of the time we're going to be wounded on 4+, or, you know, or 3+ and things. So being able to re-roll one of them is nice. We can re-roll the damage. Obviously the rocket launchers are a flat 3 damage, but with things like your Tankbuster bombs and your squig bombs, being able to re-roll that D6 damage, that is going to be amazing. Also, Deathskulls get access to this stratagem, Wreckers. Use this stratagem at the start of any phase. Select a Deathskulls unit from your army. You can re-roll wound rolls for attacks made by the unit that target enemy vehicles. So there you go. For 2 command points, Deathskull Tankbusters against vehicles re-roll their hits and their wounds. This potentially makes them even better than Bad Moon Tankbusters, I think. Because that is definitely not to be sniffed at. Re-rolling wounds against vehicles, that's going to get you a lot more damage, and that is going to make them that much better at destroying vehicles. Don't forget also that the Deathskulls have the "this is ours" Zog-off rule, so your Tankbusters are going to be that much better at claiming objectives. There is a lot to be said for Deathskulls Tankbusters. There really is. Deathskulls as a whole clan actually are, the more I read about them, the more I look, the stronger and stronger they look. Next one we got is the Snakebites. So Snakebites get that 6+ feel no pain, which is fairly useful. Again, like the with the Deathskulls invuln save, it's just going to make them that little bit more survivable and give them that extra chance to survive. But it's certainly not something you would rely on. Also, if you're going to be doing things like teleporting them in with the jump or with the teleporter, then they're probably not going to have a pain boy near them. So getting that 6+ feel no pain out on their own is going to be useful. And Snakebites get access to a rather cool stratagem that is good, not using on this unit per se, but with this unit in mind. It is expensive, it's 3 command points, but you use this stratagem at the start of any phase. So I think you can use this during the opponent's phase. So potentially in combat and stuff, but let's read up on it a little bit more. So select an enemy model with a wounds characteristic of 10 or more. So big characters, big monsters, big vehicles. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by snakebite units from your army that target that model until the end of the phase. So yeah, this is attacks in shooting and in combat. So this is going to make Tankbustas in particular very good at taking out this unit, because they're getting those re-rolls to hit, and then getting that +1 to wound is going to make a big difference. If they're targeting tanks and things of toughness 8, they're going to be wounded on 3+ instead of 4+. You know, and then in combat as well, if they then charge, they're going to be getting that +1 to wound, which is going to make them even better there. And they're still going to be better from them re-rolls to hit. So yeah, it's 3 command points, and like I say, it's not used on the Tankbusters, it's used on the enemy unit, so your whole army will benefit from this, but I think it's your Tankbusters that could potentially make the most of this. Then moving on, we've got the Goffs. So the Goffs, obviously Goffs have the exploding 6s in combat, and that's really cool. So basically like a Daka but in close combat, and against vehicles, as we've already said, the Tankbusters re-roll all their hits. So much like the shooting with the bad moons, they're going to be getting those exploding 6s, and those extra shots are going to be re-rollable, so they're going to be a lot more reliable in combat. And those exploding 6s will still work with your tank hammers. I've read over the rules just to clarify this, because I know that the model is slow when you attacks, but the attacks at the same time, so there's no reason why the tank hammer couldn't get an exploding 6 to hit and then get another attack and then dish out 2 D3 mortal wounds. So there's a bit of potential there. Same with your squig bombs, could potentially generate extra attacks from that one use item. So yeah, Goff Tankbusters in close combat could have some nasty surprises for you. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about Goffs, because there's not a stratagem per se that's Goff exclusive that would be any use for these guys, but it's just going to make Tankbusters that much better in combat. And as we said before, they're not really designed for combat per se, but you know, they do have their uses there. They definitely do. Evil Sons. Obviously, Evil Sons Tankbusters are going to be useful for their fast movement and their fast advance and charge, like everything else in Evil Sun's army. But the great thing about them is that these are going to be much easier to get within threat range, because they're carrying those assault weapons. Evil Sons can advance without any penalty to firing assault weapons, so your Tankbusters are going to be so much more reliable at getting to where they need to be. +1 movement, +1 advance. So yeah, potentially what is that, 13-inch movement if you roll well on your advance roll, without any modifiers to your ballistic skill. So yeah, Evil Sons probably doesn't jump out at people straight away, but I think don't underestimate how reliable and useful that's going to be in a game. Next we've got the Blood Axes. So Blood Axes obviously benefit from those cover saves if they're further than 18 inches away. So this again goes a little way to making them more survivable. But their real strength comes from the fact that they can fall back and shoot. So if your Tankbusters do get caught off guard and the opponent does try and tie them up in combat to prevent that nasty shooting ability of theirs, the fact that they can fall back and still shoot is very useful, is very nice indeed. They also get access to this stratagem, Dead Sneaky. So with this one, much like the teleport stratagem, you can spend 1 or 2 commands depending on the power level, and yeah, teleport these guys in. And this, like I said before with the teleport stratagem, getting them to where you need them and being able to dish out the damage. And obviously this way you're not having to pay the points for a weird boy. Perhaps you don't want a weird boy in your army, you don't want to be having the sort of you know, with the jump, obviously you've still got to pass that psychic test to be able to pull it off. This is guaranteed, and potentially for just 1 command point is very powerful and very useful for Blood Axes. And then last off, we've got the Freebooters. So Freebooters, they get that +1 to hit if another friendly unit destroys an enemy unit in that same turn. So this could mount up. And if you've got Tankbusters, then hitting on a +1, so now hitting on 4+, with rerolls is going to make them, again, just that bit better. But they're possibly, this is the unit that's likely to destroy stuff. So this might be the unit to, rather than benefit from this buff, you give out this buff, because your Tankbusters are likely to destroy something if they shoot it. And then you've got other units, perhaps things like shooter boys or looters nearby, that then benefit from that +1 to hit, making them more effective. So yeah, freebooters, Tankbusters are going to be very useful if the wind's blowing in the right direction and you've got everything set out right. Yeah, could be very useful. The +1 to hit on Ork units with shooting is very nice, especially with the Daka rule and all the extra shots you're going to be getting. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's some of my thoughts on Tankbusters. Definitely one of my favourite units in the army. They're pretty much, for me, an auto include. I absolutely love them. And if you guys haven't used them yet, I suggest you do. Likewise, if you do use them and you've got some tactics of your own and your thoughts on them, please, please, please share in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me on this video. I'll see you on the next one. This is 6 Plus Stevo, signing out.